So, hi, and welcome to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. Today is Wednesday, September 24th, 2025. And Michael, we have a question real quick before we start with Patrick. A few more people are coming in, Patrick, to hear what you're presenting.
Well, let me just do a brief introduction to Patrick because we have a request for people and answering the question. Oh, we see a little face in the background there. That's Lincoln back there. Hey, Lincoln. Anyway, um, Patrick's going to be coming on. He's going to be talking about a thing called centerline balancing. And you might remember, several times over the last several years, you've heard me mention there was one particular time when I was in Florida with a friend of mine who's a fellow naturopath, and he took me through a process. And through that process, that night, it was a totally physical process. That night, I was speaking, and it is the clearest, most connected presentation I had ever done. And I've been doing this for 50 years, was that night when Patrick did this piece of centerline balancing. And the reason why I'm introducing Patrick, we finished yesterday's show with saying or pointing out that this connection that we're talking about is physical. This interface that we're looking to hook up, that in Aramaic, I'm realizing it expands our whole definition of the word Rakhma. This interface literally is physiological. And it took until the night or the morning, yesterday morning, for me to realize what had happened when Patrick, 20 or so years ago, took me through this centerline balancing process. So when I realized out of what I had shared yesterday, the opening that I'd had way back then, I contacted Patrick to see if he'd be willing to be on the show. And Patrick, another way of explaining it, you remember the number of times that you've been on the table and I've done energy field work on, and you've gone, oh, it's doing the same thing. It's all about getting into the right physiology to link up that interface. So I'm looking forward to hearing from Patrick. But before, the reason why I'm introducing Patrick before we get into the question is answering the question. We'll give everybody a minute or two, if you would, to participate in what Patrick's going to lead us through after he shares a little bit about what he's been doing for the last half century. We started working together 57 or 58 years ago, and have remained friends ever since. But he was really uh, instrumental in the whole process of opening this healing dynamic that eventually became about first century Aramaic forgiveness. And so we'll look forward to that. But if you would, make sure you've got a chair that you can sit fairly comfortably on, and maybe grab a couple of extra pillows or a towel or two that you might wrap up, because Patrick's going to lead us through an exercise that will give you a taste of what I shared yesterday from a different perspective. So let's go ahead with that question, Jeannie, and tell us what's happening.
Okay, so this was actually a question that was posted on our website under the Beatitudes page. And it says, is there evidence that the first translations of the New Testament were written in a dialect of Aramaic? Also, were there legitimate accounts that these original translations were burned?
Well, that's a big question. I actually had an interesting conversation yesterday with ChatGPT when once again I was asking a question about Aramaic, ChatGPT came forward and told me how there are no original Aramaic manuscripts, and it was all Greek. And I'm actually working on a new book entitled where part of the title is Jesus saying, it's all Greek to me. What you've been told about Jesus is all Greek, and it has displaced his Aramaic thinking. In any event, I had a conversation yesterday with ChatGPT about that, and I fed back to them that while they are promoting this fraud, that it was all done in Greek, that they might be willing to put a caveat in, because if you read the Greek translation, or pardon me, there are no Greek translations, but would be my offering. The Greek interpretations, it acknowledges and word for word, even in those Greek interpretations, says Yeshua's final words from the cross, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, were in the original. They left it in the original Aramaic. So the text itself acknowledges that the original was Aramaic. Like, there's no question about it. But the people who win the wars write the history. And so I actually made that suggestion to ChatGPT yesterday, and ChatGPT said, "Yeah, it's in there. You're right. I'll start to put that caveat in there." When I tell them that the scholars all admit or all, agree that it was Greek. However, the text that they validate that with says this was left in the original Aramaic. So yeah, we know what the original Aramaic was. You could look up some history on a man named, let me get my brain there, Rabula, Bishop Rabula. He's the guy who the word rabble rouser came from. You might look up some stuff around him and what he tried to silence and what the church has hidden, and there's a lot of politics there. But here's my bottom line: is if you take the Aramaic teachings and you apply them, it will produce the results that you want. Sadly, if you take the Greek teachings, you end up with a lot of people in jail and a lot of people suffering in pain, in fear, and trauma, and all of that in the name of a creator called love. You look at that text, and whether it's Greek or whether it's Aramaic, you'll notice that over 300 times it says, "Fear not." And yet, many, if not most, coming from the Greek, tell us that the beginning of wisdom is the fear of God. So a text that says, "Fear not," over 300 times, do you think they've been tricked if they're telling us that fear of God is the beginning of wisdom? Now, of course, if you point that out to a preacher who just said that, you say, "Well, we don't really mean fear. What we mean is, honor and have awe." It's like, well, if that's what you mean, why isn't that what you're saying? Why are you still using the word fear? Because, and listen in the context of yesterday's show, fear causes us to contract. When we contract, we disconnect the interface that's in our cranium to the Creator. We disconnect that. Fear makes people contract. Hostility makes people contract. What we're looking to do is to support people in hooking up. And that's what the Aramaic does if you apply it. Apply the Greek and you get, the crazy that's going on in America today. Apply the Aramaic and you get something totally different. So that would be my offering in that regard. I hope that makes sense and fits for everybody. And beyond that, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just, instead of, if we've got space at the end, we'll come back to any questions on that. But what I'd like to do, so we give Patrick as much time as possible, I'd like to introduce Patrick McGhan. Patrick and I actually, when I first moved to Atlanta 58 years ago or so, I actually went looking for a place to live and ended up renting a room in Patrick's family home. And so we became friends, and he was my first body worker. Patrick used to almost literally cry when I came out of the business world and started to do this work full time. Went back to school. That's what I went to Atlanta for. My body was so hardened, it was so rock hard that Patrick almost used to cry when he'd work on my neck and shoulders and back. And he actually developed a whole new type of therapy because my body was so hard in his hands, where he'd put me on the floor and he'd use his feet. So, Patrick, you may have an interesting comment or two about that, but the floor is yours. I'm delighted that you're here. Patrick did a session of what he developed over the years called centerline balancing, which is in essence what I was talking about yesterday about getting this interface hooked up and that it's positional. It has to do with the shape and the structure of your cranium, which is the core of your antenna. And so, Patrick, the floor is yours. Delighted you're here. Thanks for being available.
Hi.
Nice to see your smiling face.
Thank you. And I want to introduce Rasa.
Hello.
Hi, Rasa. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I see this picture.
Okay. Cool. Nice to meet you.
So Rasa is the perfect example of centerline balancing to a very high degree.
Oh, she
And
volunteered?
she just showed up
Oh,
magically
cool.
on time. So
Oh,
basically, if I
perfect.
was going to teach a second class, because here's what it is. Well, I don't know if I should say it anyway. Anyway, if we teach more advanced classes, which I'm willing to do online and here too, which I will do, Rasa would be a more advanced example, but she is the basic example too. Now, the cranial alignment, let's go back to scripture again. So I don't know what psalm it was, but in the Torah, meaning the Jewish Bible or the Old Testament and Christian, it says, lift up thine eyes into the hills from whence cometh my help. So I found after years and years and years of balancing, and these are old words that mean a lot, Atlas holds up your world. So what we're seeking is the coronal suture, or what was the fontanelle when you're a baby, a hole in your head, to balance on this atlas, and then you're balanced. But if you don't have head on your shoulders, which means if I lean forward, Ross can show you from the side. If I'm like this, my head can't be on my shoulders. Your worst thing in the world today is a laptop. Second worst with torque in it is a telephone held down here. So try to hold it in center and hold everything up as far as possible and use high screens if possible. So this is branched off into two things: mental, emotional, spiritual development, and ergonomics. So we can take it from any of those perspectives. It's the same thing. So you have top athletes, top dancers, Rudolph Nureyev, people that can float through the air lightly. You have Rasa, great martial artist, great teacher, spins on a perfect center of center line this way, center line this way. And when she comes around, ever so little as she is, boy, the power that comes through her fist is terrible. But she's very loving and gentle. She's just here to teach people. But she and her path, she told me just a little while ago, everything was extremely dark, and she saw through these dark glasses, realized her ex-husband. Do you want to tell a story? Or
No, that's lots of like
so what she did was she
episodes.
started working out with martial arts at 29 again. She'd already pre-trained, but she worked her body out. And as she worked out the emotions, literally working out, and you can work in, you can work out like this with a bad attitude and work it in, or you can work out on centerline and work it out and just let go of the accumulated emotions that got buried into the physical body. So any emotion that we've suppressed, as Michael can explain, um, from another perspective of a doctor who died. But the same thing, it's like any emotion suppressed is a tightening of muscles, restriction of blood flow, restriction of energy or energy in motion. And in Atlanta, when I first started around Michael time, I went to the Atlanta back clinic where they were getting no results. And they had people flying in from around the country. Their organizer, head person, asked me to teach a class. So what I taught was just to do what I learned with Michael, which is non-force deep work. So I use my feet on Michael, but I use my elbows on their back clinics from around the world. So they had 5 PhD level, doctorate level physical therapists getting nothing done. So all we did was lower the weight of this without pressure, no force. If you push in, you could say in martial arts terms, the warrior defends. So if you go too fast or you're trying to get something done, or like one athletic therapist said, I have to hurt people to help them. That's totally wrong. You get a lot more done by just meeting people gently where they're at and being with them on an emotional level or a physical level. So what we did was just lower and then adjust our bodies so we were relaxed and balanced and not use our muscles, relax into gravity, put the elbow in, trace it in slow motion, waiting for each level to open. And as it opened, we went to the next level or next motion barrier. So I showed that to the physical therapists. They talked in their language. I had no idea what was going to happen. I left. The next week, their psychotherapist, who was, I didn't even know they had one, came to our clinic and said, thank you, my practice is full. So those emotions that were held in what Dr. Sarno, and Michael can talk about that. Dr. Sarno said, I'm not going to do any more surgery on anybody. You've got rage in your back, so let it go. So it showed me right on. But the same thing with all of us. So my emotions, any of them that are negative judgments, anything I judge, which we automatically are taught to do from birth, any judgment I have that's negative about myself or others pulls me out of alignment. So the subtle way, so there's two ways: working out to get to center, which Rasa did phenomenally. So she's really on center, and she's a healer for everybody here all the time. She can tune in on just exactly what they need, give it to them, and bring them up. She did the same thing for me and created a healing crisis. So the more you're energized, the more you can't hold down your junk. So I got really
Patrick.
racked up. Yeah, okay, off to
Yeah,
center.
let me just throw in a thought here that I had shared yesterday. What led into yesterday's show and the realization that Rakhma is this interface. You know, we've talked over the years about the Aramaic idea of Rakhma being a filter that keeps the mind on track with love, but also is the gateway for love to enter the form. And it expanded my whole understanding of it yesterday. But what opened my experience yesterday morning in my still point practice was just before I woke up, I had a dream. And in the dream, Jeannie was doing something. And whatever it was she was doing, I withdrew from it. Just subtly, but I just withdrew. And then I went into the still point. This was just like, I don't know, seconds before I awoke. And I usually awaken and go right into still point. And as I went into that, what I realized that dream was showing was just that little withdrawal was enough contraction to disconnect me. And that tied in with realizing that when I did this centerline balancing, you know, it's like, oh, I finally understood what you did 20 years ago with me with that centerline balancing. And I went that night and had the most profound energy and the deepest connection I'd ever had in that particular presentation. But just what I was showing was just that little contraction of a slight withdrawal in that dream was enough for me to unplug. And that the whole objective of this work is to stay plugged in. And so, of course, that's why I asked if you would come and join us today, because physiologically, you know, you're the master at showing people how to physiologically bring themselves into alignment. I went back as a result of yesterday's show to the radio show that I did back, I think it was September 9th, right after I'd done a quantum still point on myself. And I concluded that show. I had forgotten that, but I'd concluded that show with the same words I concluded yesterday's show with: is this connection is physical. We're talking about physiology. We're not talking about theology. We're not talking about psychology. We're talking about physiology, and all the rest flows from the healing process, flows from that space where connectedness has occurred. And the slightest withdrawal needs to be given up, needs to be forgiven.
I have a more different kind of a perspective, in that that we're all energy, according to quantum physics and Einstein, et cetera. And off to the side later on Einstein, but the whole physical body is nothing but energy and tight formats. So, you know, it looks solid and real. But what I did, or what I'm here to do, is to work on a physical body, get it aligned. I've always worked on alignment, no matter what I do on anybody. And then that gives a person the opportunity to see where they can go. And I teach people how to accomplish it themselves, not be dependent on somebody, but do it themselves. And then at the time of any therapy or any class, you get this higher level. And then you say, well, do I want that or do I not? Example of the problem with it, let's say that I had a friend, I gave her my own personal, perfect ergonomic chair to help her balance. But she was down and forward in her computer, not that the computer was down here, the screen was there, but she felt like she was accomplishing more, which many of us do, by working hard. I call it home ground, or what's your base. So emotionally, she felt I'm getting the job done sitting forward. Not true. You get a lot more done by being in balance. So the average in an office, but she went back to it, even though I gave her all the knowledge and everything because she wanted to accomplish a lot. She went back to this position and lost this, which she can get more done in. The city of Clearwater had the only ergonomics in their chair was one spring. The tallest person, they're all in pain. 6 hours is the normal work day for an 8 hour time when people are on computers. And their work is cut down. They're not as nice. They're not as happy. So just straight ergonomics, these people were like the tallest guy was pushed too far forward and he was tightening up his back all the time, trying not to fall over forward because the spring was too tight for him. The smallest girl was almost falling backwards because the spring was too light. So she's tightening up and trying to, having to curve to not fall backwards. And all they had to do is go, and here's the principle. All you do to find center of any joint or any multiple joints is just go back and forth with awareness, meaning feel, be aware of. So generally in life, all the negative emotions we feel, which is a lot, we don't want to feel, we suppress. But when you're doing this or you're doing rehabilitation, my way, you go ahead and at least feel your body and listen to it. And it says, where is the least effort? Where is the best feeling? And that's right for you. It may not be perfect for a chart, but it's right for you at this time. So if a person's been down here in the computer for years, we need to move them up slowly, not fast. So always just do it. So the first thing you do is seek comfort for your own body, not effort. This is an effortless ergonomic, meaning least effort, least units of force. So that's the whole game is no effort and just go back and forth through support. And whether you're doing psychology and counseling or whether you're doing something on this physical level with ergonomic centerline bouncing, you need to be supported where you're at to begin with. So you take pillows, like Rasa brought me a weight because I was trying to sit in this chair and I just couldn't get it. And I put a massage machine behind me to get some balance. Once she brought it and she intuited, because there are multiple things around here we could do, but she got the right thing. And all of a sudden the flow of energy up and down my spine and out into the connection to the all just was beautiful and sublime. Never could have done on my own. Thank you. So any questions, any comments, and anybody want to learn anything or try anything afterwards?
Yeah,
After your question?
yesterday, Patrick, in the show we did, as I was talking about how this opened for me and became clear for me. And by the way, if you weren't on the show yesterday, you can go to our archives on YouTube Radio. If you do go, or pardon me, on YouTube and look for Michael Ryce, and you'll find yesterday's archive. And by the way, if you listen to one of our archives, if you would click a link, join the channel, it really helps, and or make a comment on it would be appreciated. In any event, I used the example yesterday, as you were sitting there, it reminded me of exactly that. You know, the person loses a connection with on their phone, their cell connection, and you see them go outside and they're reaching for the sky here and here and here, and that's kind of what we're doing as we're doing this connecting. It's really this balancing act of getting in the right place where the antenna is aligned to connect us in to literally the God connection, literally bringing in the attunement with that in which we live, move, and have our being. And so I was just kind of visualizing as you were rocking your head back and forth, the person with the cell phone trying to get their connection. That's what we're doing is we're looking to align to get an interface to connect. That's literally what's happening. And it's physical.
It's one, you say physical, and I love to work from the physical, but there's no separation between anything. It's all one thing.
Yes.
But so working at it from the so-called physical level, which I kind of got one thing to represent that. A lot of times people would teach somebody about telekinesis by putting a salt shaker on a table and then saying, now move that. And they'd sit there 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes trying to get it to move. And the teacher would go, pick it up. See how easy that is? So when you work on the physical body, either working out and releasing by the way you work out, the attitude you work out with, or by going neutral and very subtle. And you can combine the two. You can take what you learn with centerline bouncing, very gentle, very supported, no effort, effortlessness. Use pillows, towels, whatever to support you as you are. And people that listen to you on the psychological level who don't judge you, who are just there for you, Michael's a master at it, who are just neutral, are supporting you where you are. And then you can move from there easily. It's easy to let go. So when you do this particular thing, I say speak for her, we want to add one thing that we add all the time. It's in Taoist perceptions of an inner smile. And it's from my wife's channeling that you can choose any frequency that you've ever experienced just by going there, like a TV station. So we choose to smile as much as possible and to at least smile towards my heart, even how subtle that be is beautiful. And it really helps centerline bouncing. Or just total neutral, nothing, just alignment and neutral. So let's do the alignment neutral. You can smile if you want.
Perhaps, Patrick, you'd lead in.
Yes.
You'd lead in with a definition of what centerline balancing is. And I know that in the past, like when you've talked with me about it, you've used an example. You'll hold your hand up and look at you, say, okay, so I have a joint here, my wrist. And when I get to the center line, that's where there's the maximum flow of energy through the joint, and everything works best with that maximum flow of energy.
Yeah. So this is real simple. Maximum flow of energy and most safety and most power and most function is not here, not here. You just go back and forth and feel where's that feel the best to me. And you may be different from somebody else. You may be here or there. Now, how does that principle hold up? The most energy flows through. And if we did centerline bouncing on the ground, which we'll do later, anybody wants to, we'll put those classes together. So what we did was starting just laying down, we would support the body in shape and form as it is. Use towels, curve the neck, curve the back of the head, the curve. If you're head forward, we'd put more in to keep you head forward. And then your body starts relaxing. And then we take the shoulder, the elbow, and the wrist and move the arm away. This is like on the ground, away from the body too far, close to the body too close. Where does it feel the best? Feels the best for me right there. How about you? What do you do? Where does it feel the best when you go back and forth?
All the
Try
time,
it.
different.
No, just like right now. Go too high. Now go
Not
low.
too high here.
That's your best.
Yeah.
And hers is higher because she's different. So we're all different. So you just now take it down a little and see what it feels like. Not too good, right?
Kind of like I feel, but this is like
Feel better there?
from the shoulder.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're all different. So you do your own. And then what we did when we're on the ground, we'd move in and out, and then we'd move this back and forth in gravity. And then we move the wrist, which when you relax, it'll always fall over. Don't worry about it after a little while. And then we did the legs, and we did the legs are three joints, hip, knee, and ankle. And we'd put our feet in alignment, and we'll skip that. But once we got three joint alignment on each leg, that's six in the arms, and the head was supported, the neck was supported, the upper back was supported according to how the person was. Everything let go. And it was just amazing. And so I have one that's a 3-hour class, floor, sitting, and standing, and each one helps the other one. So sitting is what we'll do today without doing the floor, if you like. And then what happened with one fella, he was a what do you call it, opera singer, and he said, I spent $30,000 to learn how to get my power up for my singing. He said in a 3-hour class, I got more than $30,000 because of the alignment. So the body functions usually when teaching ergonomics, I have people move their fingers like this really quickly. If they're going to work on computers or if you want to feel it like you're typing, and then I'd say head forward and their fingers, most people, not everybody, the function goes down in the fingers. And then drop your chest down and it's even worse for most people, for me especially. So dysfunction in the wrists and the fingers starts with the center line through the coronal suture of the head external medius to the ear is a point you can see when you're looking at somebody. But the center of the atlas is extremely important. Atlas holds up your world. Head on your shoulders was not a joke. So what we want to do in sitting is get enough support in the back, either the lower ribs or lumbar. Usually you have chairs that support the lumbar. It doesn't work for me. It's like too far forward and puts my pelvis out of balance. So what I do is I move the pillow again. Everything's just up and down, back and forth till it feels the best. So when I select a chair, I'm going in anybody's home, I look for all the chairs that'll support me the best. So I'll feel great while I'm there, great while I'm talking, and great when I leave, instead of the chairs that do this to me or cave me in. Any comments, questions?
We have a question in the chat room, Patrick,
Okay.
and Andrea, Patrick already put out the caveat, work slowly, but her question is, what would you say to someone who's experiencing post-concussive and whiplash for the last 3 years? What would you suggest to someone working with that physiological condition?
Okay. I'm sorry that I flashed on the psychological first. So you have to ask yourself, is there a reason? Every time we're creators, know ye not that you're gods, Yeshua said. So it's like sometimes we create a difficulty to help us learn a certain lesson or go through a thing. Sometimes we're just humans and we have programs as humans that keep us in terrible things for a long period of time because we're taught, especially, I apologize for this, in the present medical field, most physical therapy is like a joke. It just doesn't work because they're not covering the emotions and they're not listening to the body and they're just doing mechanical things, straight line, and it doesn't work. But so ask yourself the question, is there a reason? And here's the thing, don't even think a negative reason why. Ask yourself, what good am I getting out of this? What have I gotten? What am I receiving? How do I find the good in this thing that's going on? Now let's skip that. So, and if you need support emotionally, be with someone like Michael that'll be with you, be there for you. If you have emotions that you're suppressing, by keeping that and you don't want to feel those emotions, you can keep that. We have one person, nobody will know about it. We have a person here that got injured because he doesn't want to go into the next fight. It's whatever. So he's holding the injury deliberately. He's not healing like he could very quickly, but he needs to hold that as a block to not go to the next thing he was going to do. So there's reasons
And you're
why.
in a martial arts studio right now, right?
I'm in a martial arts studio.
So people understand that fight thing.
Yeah. The fighting here is friendly, loving. It's a great group of people that are learning that they can go whatever they need to go through life. They can do it to get things done. They're brothers and sisters or a family. They're not harsh, and they work with each other. And there's 3 or 4 people that are in perfect alignment here. And they're mostly instructors like Rasa. But so I look at the emotions here and I'm gentle on that and I just give people clues. But with a girl, I usually only work 15 minutes with any of the people here and they're healed. And I teach them how to self-heal. One person had been in pain since childhood. And she went to chiropractors, medical doctors, this and that and the other. I call it she was ready. Whatever she got out of that, she got out of it. Whatever she's just ripe. So we worked an hour and I was just guided. I'm always guided by the vibration in the person to just go here, go there, all effortless. She got up and she's healed of all this extreme, excruciating pain that she's had since childhood. She's in her, I don't know, 30s, something like that. So she's been in hell for a long time. So sometimes you're ripe and ready. Sometimes you have a reason why you're creating a block or why you're holding down an emotion that you don't want to feel, which is most of us. Do you want to make a comment?
Just to say, like for nostalgic, and to say emotions, it's rotting wound.
Rotting wound?
Yeah, until you didn't clean and it's become to heal, you never let go.
Right.
You let that rotting. It's not like hold up, but it's rotting. So sometimes you have to talk until they emotionally and cry and scream and everything. Just then they can heal. You have to constantly talk about this. If you put away, it's just rotting.
Right.
If you pretend it's nothing happening, no, 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 and you like all the time emotionally, you never heal. It's
Right.
rotting wound.
Right. Rasa hasn't taken this work, but she's got most of it down from the inside out just on her own. And she's a great healer. So in that, not that you have a rotting wound or anybody has one, but it's similar. It perks and it kills your body. Every suppressed emotion that's negative, judge not least to be judged. It's instantaneous. Your chemistry changes. And that's why we like to smile. When you have any negative emotion against yourself or another and you just laugh at yourself, and you'll break that pattern. And like Emoto's work out of Japan shows that any water, which is where 98+% water, changes to sewage when there's negativity on it, imprinted on it. And if it's blessed or loved, it looks like the most beautiful snowflakes in the world. So we instantaneously change our chemistry that quick. So I would say if you're guilty or you're judging or you got highly suppressed emotions, what we add to it that we like is I've been laughing to myself for years, especially if I feel guilty. Then I just work on not doing it again. But first, just laugh so we could practice that. And at the end, you'll always see yourself smiling and your whole body will be filled with light. I feel so much lighter just from that laughter and that smile. So that's one key that we like to use. And then the alignment, many people have healed dramatically, just like that girl did in an hour. Many people have healed dramatically, or Michael was able to dramatically experience speaking so much more powerfully, so much clearer, being a great channel through his alignment. And then he and I have played with off and on this idea of alignment, which is your bones being in alignment, your muscles holding your bones in alignment. So there's no effort through the body. The bones are like crystals. They have the strongest channeling of energy there is in what Michael calls the antenna. So the antenna is all your bones. So if you line them up, life is easier, everything's easier. Your emotions, now God gave us in a nice way survival. Otherwise we'd all be walking off cliffs, walking, who would want to live? Who cares? Survival mechanisms are great and they're most of the problem too. So every survival program I have emotionally will pull me off balance, pull me off centerline. And when I'm working with Michael's work or parallel works, I always do this too. I'm always in my car, like you can just, I teach this for car, try this in your car. When you get in your car and you're leaning forward to the steering wheel's too far forward, move your seat forward to, and you got to deal with your fear of being too close to the steering wheel or run into an accident. So you just go back and forth with the seat base, and then you come back and forth with the adjustable steering wheel, do it again. And then when you've been working hard or you're upset, you just lean the chair back, way back until you got a base for your head on the shoulders, head on your shoulders, and then you have a base for your atlas. I'm too far back now, so I have to use the front muscles to tighten. So if I then say that was in bad shape, I'm down the road, right? So now if I'm here and I balance this atlas and I don't have the mirror adjusted to look down or too far up a little is good. And I don't have the outside mirrors adjusted down. So you just adjust it. It's a tool that's been making your body copy that pattern, which could be very bad for you, or it could be good, depending on how you adjusted it. But you can adjust it according to what you've been doing in the day. Been working down and forward constantly. Can't help it. Okay. I do, 6, 8 hours I've done of forward into bodies and tables. So it's like I get out, I go back, I balance, everything lets go. 5, 10, 15 minutes later, I straighten the chair out. Pretty soon I'm taller, more aligned, feeling better. So there's a lot of ways to go about it. Just in a straight class where you do laying down, sitting, standing, it's great. Then you can take that and apply it to your car, your computers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, your exercise. the way you work out, the way bodybuilders do bodybuilding. I've seen a lot of bikers in the old days. I was, taught, I had 3 certifications and I worked with champions in bodybuilding. The champions all get aligned first and then work out with a beautiful attitude, usually with a smile or enjoyment. And the people that were working it into their bodies, suppressing it, would be down and forward and angry and push it. And they'd stand up and they'd look really ugly and forward shoulder, head forward, shoulder forward, muscles built wrong. So it's about how you do it, not necessarily what you do, but how you do what you do. And you can include it in everything. And it's a lot of fun to include it in what you do. And like me, even though it's what I teach, what I do, what I love, I drop out, I come back, I do it again. I got to a whole new, go ahead.
Important to develop that ability to become the thinker apart from the thought, the feeler apart from the feelings, and the actor apart from the actions. So we observe our own structure, and then to recognize that it is a device and that the device needs to stay plugged in. 2 comments in the chat room. One is that maybe you'll be at the November intensive here in Virginia and be able to work with people directly that are part of the intensive. So we'll talk about that as a possibility. And then a comment came from Sean. And he says, and he's coming from a scriptural base, ask about the chrism oil that's mentioned in the scriptures that flows from the land of milk and honey. It
Okay,
has
got it.
healing properties according to
Santa
science, he
Claus.
says. Yeah. And the ancient Bible stories are much about, he says, metaphysical physiology and how the brain works.
Right. I got it really quickly. About 5 or 6 months ago, another friend of ours from Atlanta, Dusty, who remembers all his past lives, a lot of them anyway. He's a magical person and he's done a lot of spiritual stuff. He works with beings that we don't work with, like elementals, fire, what do you call it? Beings in the ocean he talks to. But Dusty, luckily, I went by his place and he gave me like an initiation and we were playing with the centerline bouncing and he ran this energy through my head from both sides and like this thing lit up in the middle of my head. And then he says, well, let's teach people how to do this on their own. And he said that most people pay attention to the pituitary front, but not the pineal. If I could have mixed them up, who knows? But anyway, once you balance your atlas and you look, what we discovered was that thing from the Bible where it says, lift up thine eyes into the hills. So that's about a little teeny bit above centerline. If you do that after you achieve centerline, you'll feel a decompression on the back of your head. Inside, your brain will be decompressed and you'll feel more fluid flow. And now you're more up for getting that guidance by the connection. So you
That's the interface
depend.
literally plugged in.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
all that, and he sent me pictures and he's written it up and got the Santa Claus, the chimney and the fluid coming down the stack. But what I noticed of the people that are the best off is not straight here, but right there. So slightly up, and that's the most deep, like there's a weird thing going on in my head right now. Kind of like it. But there's some people that actually walk around that way. Usually their chin is usually level with the ground. And they're very strong, very powerful people, very gentle, powerful people. Most of them. Yeah.
Connectedness. Well, anybody have a question for Patrick? If you want to hit your mute button, just to see if this is making sense for you. If you have any specifics you'd like to ask him about the whole idea of physiologically, and when he does a full session, he's talking about centerline balance of everything from the feet, the ankles, to the knees, to the hips, to the shoulders, to the whole thoracic cavity up into the cranium, the whole structure being balanced, and then throughout the rest of the structure starting to make that part of your habit rather than people who live in denial, dissociation, suppression, who end up walking around at the age of 80 like they're hunched over and And when they're not walking with a walker, they look like they are because they've so shut themselves down all their lives. The practice here is to open and remember that there's this subtle place right at the top of your crown. Your antennas aligned and you're linked in. And when you contract, it's a disconnection. And if some of you who've done worksheets in the past, you remember one of the earlier versions of the worksheet that I used to ask the question or have the question on the worksheet of what was my error? My error was I made this more important than being connected to my source.
Thank
Nothing
you.
is more important.
I will put in a lot more practice
Michael?
time sooner.
Yes.
This is Linda.
Hey, so Linda, you got Patrick and Michael both.
Great, Patrick. I'm so glad because I have one comment and to share with you. The reason I have not been on the show this past week at all is because I did a face plant in front of Safeway and I broke my fibula. And I'm
Bless
in
your
a
heart.
boot and trying to recuperate, and went right down on my front teeth. So I've got some dental work to do. Fortunately,
Bless your heart.
Rucha told me to
Breathing with
push
you.
on behind my right front tooth, and it popped it back in place. So there's just a little misalignment now. But so I'm really listening with all ears, Patrick. Besides the smile on the heart, Patrick, I have run across the different qigongs where they have the smile on the heart, the smile on the head, and the smile in the lower pelvic area. I just thought I'd share that with you.
Thank you.
Because
I was holding back on the
like
pelvis.
those,
I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
When you said that just now,
head,
I took it.
The heart.
Yes,
Yes, go.
I took it from my heart and I just floated through my whole body, just copying the same energy
Isn't
by
that
feeling.
sweet? Yeah,
Thank you.
It is.
Might as well
I just
go
did the
from
same thing.
Might as well go from the toes to the crown, right?
Love it all. Yeah. And then we can expand it to everybody as we give it to ourselves. The reason
My
why.
challenge is.
Go ahead.
My challenge is my default is that I notice there's a sad sac, and if I'm not being mindful, that sad sac mouth happens. Do you have anything that you might add, either one of you, on that one? Because I don't feel it at all, but there's obviously some more forgiveness work to do, which I am doing.
You're saying you don't feel it when you have the sadness in your face? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, I don't.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, I look at the mirror more so you can see it, and then go ahead and smile. But the other thing is the sadness. All emotions are created by a belief system. We're just like computers are copied after us, but a computer has a hard drive. We were given genetics, which you have to strike the keys with stress to plug into the negative genetics. They don't just come about. You have positive and negative. You have positive strengths and a few weak points, which under stress, in other words, disconnection from love and God, then that plugs in. But we're all programmed to do certain things, feel sadness. It's automatic. I've got a ton of it, but I say this to myself on most emotions to let go of them. The reason why I have this feeling is because I chose to believe I should. And then I laughed my butt off of myself. And that includes sadness. I've been going through a lot of sadness about my wife over the last year. She's had cancer. Was supposed to die 3 months ago. Then she rejuvenated. I've been going through the sadness of a human being programmed to be sad. Now, why wasn't I glad? And why am I not focusing on the joy that she's coming back and I get to go hug her and love her and, be with her more?
Breathing with you, Patrick. Breathing with you. Take a breath.
Well, that's what it is funny because yesterday, Rasa is bringing life energy up in people, right? Around here. Just right.
Thank you, Rasa.
Right person. She does it all the time. So when she did it for me and another guy yesterday, just laughing and having a good time, bringing our life force up. And I go home, I go to bed early. I get up late feeling like absolute hell. I do the centerline bouncing, nothing works in the car. And all of a sudden, when I do hit it for the first time in my 50 years of doing it, I didn't go neutral. I started crying because I had all this emotion stored up around sadness, right? So who am I to say? But I do know this, that first, as a human, I bring everything up as it is. All my negativity, I don't try to suppress it, I bring it up. Because how are you going to recognize it if you're not willing to bring it up as it is? Support myself where I'm at. Then, usually over 24 hours, for me, with the work I've done so far, it's gone. Usually the next morning, it's gone. This is a healing crisis for me. And this great friend of mine helped bring it on.
Awesome.
And so we're healing today. So I would get in touch with, do both. It's yin and yang. You do the center line, and hopefully, you get neutral. It helps you be able to look at things easier. It helps you to be able to be aware of things easier and change them easy. And occasionally, like I just got through, first time in 50 years, I ended up being sad and crying.
And Patrick,
Then I could
Patrick, I
then
invite
I
you to
could
just
center
look.
line better.
Yeah, and invite you to
Absolutely.
look at the additional community that you just attracted to be here for you, to support you in breathing, feeling, and letting loose so that you can really be that presence of love with and for both yourself and your wife.
Yay. And
So
another
we're
thing I have
joining
to
you.
say about Michael's breathing, I breathed lower belly because I was Tai Chi, Qigong, martial arts. I only breathed out my back ribs when I was taking impact, or in my belly when I was, getting energy, but not tightening up, not blowing it. But Michael kept giving me a hard time about not breathing into my upper ribs, which I considered effortful, waste of energy. You have to tighten up muscles, and fighting, you'd lose energy and you'd lose. So I wouldn't do it. But what I found was when I breathed into my upper ribs finally, after he kept picking on me, that's what it felt like. Anyway, but he helped me make the breakthrough. And I found
Power
that
person dynamic.
I had suppressed a tremendous amount of emotional energy in my upper ribs and collarbone area. And that, as it released, helped centerline bouncing come about. So it's a vice versa. When you work out your emotions, you can go more centerline. When you go more centerline, you can work out your emotions better.
Beautiful. And so, Linda, my offering, we were recently talking about you doing a quantum still point. And what I've noticed over the years is that if I'm staying aligned, even when what we call an accident happens, it's an uplift. You remember the scriptural quote, to those who, and I'm going to change the language of it slightly, to those who stay connected to the Creator, all things work together for good. Now, one of the things that happens in quantum still point, one of my objectives when I'm doing quantum still point with the people is that I'm looking to mobilize the system. And I'll say that my show yesterday, if you go back and listen to the one that I did back several months ago where I did the quantum still point, I started a mobilization process. And if you were to listen to the shows from here to there, I keep touching in until I reach the point, and I don't know what's to come yet, but I reached a point yesterday that was just monumental. I mean, it was so subtle, so key. And I now understand what Rakhma is. And it was a whole process that started months ago when I did that quantum still point that led to that opening.
Can you hold this?
So I would offer that perhaps yesterday, and I'll just offer this would be the highest mind energy you might want to hold it in, that was the best adjustment that you needed and you set yourself up for perfectly and allow yourself to embrace, breathe into it, let everything soften. And instead of any kind of withdrawing from it, allow yourself to expand into it. And you might find it was everything that you needed. And it's mobilized things so that your whole structure, which I know you've been working on aiming for, that your whole structure can reach the next level of integration and the next level of your process.
Now, that's yesterday's show, and you said it might be helpful for me to go back to the still point sessions that you did on the show several months ago. And
I'll send you a couple links.
Oh, that would be perfect.
Yeah,
now, because I am beginning to make connections between my hypervigilance, my sad sack, and my atlas, because whenever I would go to a chiropractor, it was about the atlas, and I have definitely feel that my enthusiasm level was suppressed so deeply, and that's the pineal, right?
My take would be the true enthusiasm comes from that interface, Rakhma, that link, and that's what, if you break the word down, theos means God, enthusiasm means in the connectedness with the active presence of love in which we live, move, and have our being. That's enthusiasm. And yeah, the whole culture is set up to shut that down. And that's the first, the power person message. This ties with codependence. The power person message that takes the child out of entheos, of living enthusiasm, is usually one that says something about how you're broken. You're bad. There's something wrong with you. You never can. You never will. And that's the mind energy that creates that contraction that reinforces the disconnection. And so my offering is that to add the mind energy to your experience at this moment, to step into allowing yourself to expand into that fall, every sensation that's going on, let yourself embrace it, let yourself breathe into it and integrate it. And everything in your structure will probably, having been mobilized, will reach the next level of alignment that you're ready to go to. It may not be full alignment yet, but that you're ready to go to the next level.
That's beautiful, and I somehow have linked the pineal as a potential portal to Rakhma. I don't know where Rakhma actually comes in, but I notice that for me, it seems to be somehow connected.
It ties in, yes. It very well may be the physiological location. The science is also talking like it might be, from their research, it might be what they call the angular gyrus. But really, we don't need to give it an anatomical name or figure that out. What we need to do is recognize that, if we look in the Aramaic, the words that were translated as the kingdom of heaven, properly translated are, one, the community of love, and two, the kingdom of expansion, or the space of expansion. And what I got out of that, the message just before this experience that happened for me yesterday, was that little withdrawal that I did was enough to create a disconnection in my own physiology. And so to allow yourself to expand into and embrace that fall and every sensation that comes with it, I think will take you to that. You've been mobilized, and the mobilization is one of the most important pieces to get it to go to its next level of integration.
I'm going to sign off so Patrick can talk and you.
Well, don't sign off because you might want to repeat back to me.
No, just mute. Just mute.
Whatever you like, but I have something, that may or may not help. It could be a seed thought. The Scientologists do exactly what Michael was talking about, go back through everything in detail, and then it disappears after a while. The other thing is that from the very beginning, being born, we were taught, that's nice. Oh, that's not good. So we all seek approval based on love, not love from parents, well-meaning, not even the bad ones, not even the trauma type, but just that we're always seeking approval. Then lots of us got lots of traumas and injuries and dramas and stuff that are stuck in. And I think that if you only work on them from a viewpoint of something's wrong with you, then you're holding that stuff. And if you work at it another way, now in between, I'm going to shoot this one real quick. There was a little old lady that started a psychic church down here, And I went and talked to her and she said, I do subud. I said, what's subud? She said, if I fall, it knocks something into place. So the majority of my falls and things thereafter either did give me a good adjustment or I recognized that they were going to give me something good as long as I look for it. And I do get the good out of everything that appears to be bad in my life. And you get more good that way. Now, in Theo, enthusiasm means in God, in Theo, in joy. So what Jesus said, you have to be, kingdom of heaven is a hand, so is hell, but he's talking about the kingdom of well-being, happiness, and joy. You have to be like little children. So I'd combine the two and I'd definitely break the pattern of I have to work hard because I'm under the negativity to get better because I'm bad. And I'd go, yeah, let's just go, ha, 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 ha. Laugh and smile and finally, seek the kingdom of heaven. You can do it instantaneously. And then you have different things like all my negative emotions and all my hurt, pain, sorrows that pull me off balance, off center, off Theo. But I got one teacher, last thing, and this teacher said, if you want to live the absolute best life you can, only do what excites you. And I reinterpret the word to not just excite, because maybe you need to go to sleep, right? But what gives you enthusiasm? What do you love? So you want the highest life? Not only pull out the blocks, but choose to go to rebel against the status
Live
quo.
your purpose.
Live your love,
Live
your
your
purpose.
purpose. I have another question here, Patrick, in the chat room. What are
Okay.
the differences or similarities between centerline balancing and upper cervical chiropractic? I know
Well,
you've worked at several chiropractic offices over the
right,
years, so
right. Okay, so chronologically, I had allergies as a child. My dad spent in the late 50s price of 3,000, so that's like 12,000, 15,000. 3 years of shots, no action. Come out of the military. In the military, I had to be carried off a point where I got some junk fall down on a bridge on me, and I had big splotches. Like, also, if I got stung by a bee, I'd die before I got to the hospital. I went to a dinner given in my honor, and a cat walked 6 feet from me, which I'm deadly allergic to at the time, and I couldn't breathe. I had snot coming out of my nose, eyes watering. Now, I didn't know what a psychic was, but I found out. Cynthia Young led me to this church, and all these psychics are going to one chiropractor, Atlas Orthogonal, Grossi technique, CAD technique, Atlas techniques. The theory is, first, every chiropractor, the chart says all allergies come from what? C1, Atlas, C1, 2. So if your brain stem's compressed there, you're way out of whack, and everything has to adjust in one direction. Like if I was 5.5 left, he said if I was 3.5 left, I'd be okay. 5.5 left meant that to get eye writing mechanism this way, I had to lift this shoulder to be balanced and walk a straight line even with the thing. So this chiropractor only did one x-ray, $54 at the time, 60s price. And then he lays me on a table that was uncomfortable, and gravity was letting my head tilt back over the left, stationary. And then he goes up and he goes, and I'm going, what do you do? Pull the energy out of my neck? And then I'm thinking, wow. But I learned later it was a toggle recoil effect where you didn't feel it. But he was also a charismatic Christian. And I found the majority of the chiropractors in this area that were doing Atlas orthogonal and Grossi and CAD techniques were mostly also very high in faith, in their transfer of faith. And if you lay there, you're willing to heal, you're going to get that transfer of faith, which I did with Michael on the work he's doing. I unzipped myself and allowed whatever was going to happen when he did his advanced work physiologically in my mouth. And I allowed the transfer of the belief and the faith along with the physicality of the actual adjustments he was doing. I got a hit that just blew me away and changed my life, but if I went in there and I did disbelief and I'm resistant, I can't get it. So that changed my life dramatically. I slept that night with a kitten on my chest all night long, on my chest. And I was never allergic to anything more. I had a little bit of trouble in Atlanta when there was so much, what would I say? And just a little, there was so much yellow pollen on the ground one year that I had a little like, little irritation, but otherwise I've never had allergies since. So that was a baseline for knowing how Atlas and the cranium, your world, and your face, how you face life, all shows up here. That was the beginning of centerline balancing. And then the second part was the Bachin chart by Dr. Bachin, which is a bone chart. And Paul St. John, who does the opposite of me. Well, I do both, but I go anterior to posterior because that's the majority of emotions. There are left-right emotions and imbalances. Paul works with the left-right because that's where you have your bigger torque and the injuries. But if you take the A and P off, anterior and posterior, front to back imbalances of emotion and balance that way, the majority of everything disappears already. And if you play, once you get on this front to back and you're balancing this way, then you can start left to right. And then the more subtle, the more powerful on this kind of work. So then you can sit with that atlas already being freed and do little teeny microscopic rotations all around, left and right circles or clockwise and counterclockwise. And it will keep releasing the atlas and releasing everything below. Everything below starts releasing just by the position. But if you start working with it, playing with it, more and more happens. So I think Alice is, that's who holds up your world. And
Cool. Good
it.
one. We have a couple more questions. One is, I work at a standing desk. Your thoughts?
I've always loved them. And my son is full time, like computer programmer for Oracle. So he does a desk that stands and goes down. I like that better. The more you can move, the better. If you're at any fixed position, like if you're forward or you're adapting to it, that desk standing is great. He even has a balance board so that he keeps some movement on his center line. I don't even talk to him about it. He just created all this. So when he raises the desk up and it raises up your chest, and his screen's always high and he's always looking up and he's never looking down. But sitting down, you can get really fixated there, even if it's close to center. It's too much stasis. Movement is life, stasis is not. So if you could take a break, fine. Do some centerline bouncing in a chair, fine. Do it standing, fine. Move your screens up and down a little, move your desk up and down if you had an adjustable. So he does it all, and I like it all. But I myself I've used encyclopedias that like not, oh yeah, dictionaries, old dictionaries to raise my screen up. I go buy a $20 screen and I go from here with my laptop here, and then I go up and I go up a little higher and a little higher. And I've done it with just books and boxes, for cheap. So where you're standing, you might want to add Tai Chi just to do a figure eight alone, just a figure eight with Tai Chi Gong by Rasaji is the most important exercise. It's the one that helps me the most because it's every direction. You could try that, you could try other things, but I would definitely not do any one thing for 6 to 8 hours without break or without change of motion. When I came here to this place with everything I knew, I blew out a muscle. I lost my gastrocnemius, large calf muscle on my left. So I'd worked too hard for 6 months, only picking things up down and forward, heavy objects to clean up after the hurricane and do all the work by myself for half a year. I never did sideward movements. I never let go. I never did what I know. I just worked hard because that's part of my personality. So I drove. Pretty soon I couldn't hardly walk at all. I had to use a walker. And I came to this place and I came to the stairs. I'd have to do one step, second foot, next step, hold on to the wall, next step, second step, second foot, drag it up. Now hold on to the door handle, now limp into the place. Then, unbeknownst to me, with everything I know, and I know a lot, and it comes through me too, I go outside and I get in position, I bounce around like this, trying to miss getting hit, and it's fun to me. It's great exercise because I don't feel how hard I'm exercising when I'm playing. Don't tell my instructor I said play. This is martial arts. So you play football, Patrick. But anyway, as soon as I did that, I could walk backwards very fast. I could walk up the center of the stairs. Within the week, I could walk up the center of the stairs, 1 foot, second foot, no, just boom, boom up and carry a load. Couldn't carry anything before. So it's like any movement that is any movement, like when you reach out with your arm like this, triceps got to turn bicep off. But fibers aren't just straight line. They're in all lines and everything works together. So the more you do curves, circles, and those are your advanced anything. So the more you can do any kind of exercise you love, any kind of movement you love, anything you love, you should do. Even
Mobilize.
if you love mobilize. Yeah.
Mobilize, yay. Another comment from the chat room. Someone else who's being in the intuitive development here in Virginia in November says she hopes you can attend. She's grown immensely from 7 years of martial arts and become a somatic experiencer 3 years. So she's hoping that that might be
What's the dates on the intensive?
November, I think 20. I don't know. I'll get it to you, Patrick. I'll
Okay,
get you
great.
the dates.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
And she wants to know if your son uses a Bosu ball on the screen. I love that balancing, the balancing board. That'd be cool. And standing.
I don't know what a
cool.
Bolson ball is. All I know is the standing thing.
BOSU.
What?
BOSU.
Yeah, I'll look it up later, but I don't know what it is right now.
Yeah.
He doesn't sit on a ball, that's for sure. What he does is when he's standing, he has a disc, the round disc, and has something in the middle that keeps it from being balanced any direction. So it has to go, I've seen them in where physical therapists are trying to teach older people like me balance, and I would say it's a good idea because it is multi-directional, every direction. And that's what counts the most is all direction.
Yeah. Mobilize. Yeah.
Mobilize.
Date for the intensives, November 14th to 22nd. Jeannie's put in the chat. Thank you, sweetheart.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Well, any final thoughts, Patrick?
No.
Well, awesome. I appreciate you being available, and I appreciate you being in my life for the last half century plus, and how we've gotten to play back and forth and give gifts to each other in the realm of healing, and deeply appreciate having you on my team and being on yours. So appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you.
Okay.
See you all
Thanks,
later.
everybody, for joining us at the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. When you're finished, Patrick, turn around and look at what's right behind your head. It's interesting.
Who is that right there? Okay, I'll look at it. You said 14th through the 22nd?
Yeah, 14th to the 22nd. That's the plan. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Blessings. Bye-bye.